The diner was nearly empty that Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet that felt heavier than silence. Clara stood behind the counter, her hands trembling as she wiped the same spot for the 10th time. Her apron was stained with coffee, her eyes red from holding back tears. She wasn't crying because she'd spilled a pot of decaf or because her feet ached after a 12-hour shift. No, Clara was breaking inside because of the note pinned to the schedule board. Clara Thompson, terminated effective immediately. She'd seen it an hour ago when she went to clock out. No explanation, no warning, just her name in cold black ink. The manager, Mr. Hargrove, hadn't even looked her in the eye when he muttered, "It's just business, Clara." She was 58 years old, with gray streaks in her hair and a smile that had welcomed customers to Rosie's Diner for 15 years. No, she was nothing but a name scratched off a list. Clara leaned against the counter, staring at the chipped linoleum floor. She thought of her tiny apartment, the stack of bills on the kitchen table, the prescriptions she couldn't skip. Her daughter, Emily, was halfway across the country, chasing her own dreams at college. Clara had worked double shifts to pay for those textbooks, those late-night study sessions. She'd never complained, not once. But now? Now she felt like the ground had vanished beneath her. The bell above the door jingled, snapping her out of her thoughts. A man walked in, older, maybe in his 70s, with a worn flannel shirt and a quiet way about him. He slid into a booth by the window, his eyes scanning the menu like it was a newspaper. Clara forced a smile, grabbed a pot of coffee, and walked over. "Welcome to Rosie's," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Coffee?" The man looked up, his eyes kind but sharp, like he could see right through her practiced cheer. "Please," he said, "and maybe a slice of pie if you've got any left." Clara nodded and poured the coffee, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. She didn't know it yet, but this stranger was about to change everything. She'd been through too much to believe in miracles. Life had taught her that kindness was rare, and second chances were even rarer. Yet, as she walked back to the counter, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about this night. Something was coming, something she never could have expected. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the tables. Clara glanced at the clock. 8:47 p.m., 13 minutes until closing. 13 minutes until she'd have to walk out of Rosie's for the last time. She didn't know where she'd go or what she'd do. All she knew was that the world felt heavier tonight, and she wasn't sure she could carry it alone much longer. Clara had always been the reliable one. For 15 years, she'd shown up early, stayed late, and memorized every regular's order. Old Mr. Jenkins liked his eggs sunny side up with extra bacon. Mrs. Carter wanted her tea iced, no sugar, with a lemon slice on the side. Clara knew these things because she cared. Rosie's wasn't just a job. It was her place in the world, her way of mattering. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed. A new manager, Mr. Hargrove, arrived with his pressed suits and sharp voice. He didn't smile at customers or ask about their day. He watched the staff like a hawk, jotting notes on a clipboard, muttering about efficiency and cost-cutting. Clara didn't think much of it at first. She kept her head down, worked her shifts, and ignored the whispers about layoffs. Then the complaints started. A customer claimed Clara got their order wrong, except she hadn't. Another said she was rude, but Clara had never raised her voice in her life. She overheard Hargrove on the phone one day talking to corporate. "We need to trim the fat. Older staff, higher wages, they're a liability." Clara's heart sank. She was one of the oldest on the team, earning $1 more per hour than the younger waitresses because of her years of service. Last week, the final blow came. A young couple, loud and impatient, left a 1-star review online, claiming Clara had ignored them and ruined their meal. Clara remembered that night vividly. They'd snapped their fingers at her, demanded refills every 5 minutes, and left no tip. She'd stayed polite, even when they laughed at her for mixing up a single side order in the chaos of a busy shift. Hargrove didn't ask for her side of the story. He just pointed to the review and said, "This is unacceptable, Clara. We can't afford mistakes." Now, here she was, fired without cause, her dignity stripped away. She stood by the counter, her hands twisting the rags she used to wipe tables. The diner was her second home, and losing it felt like losing a piece of herself. She thought of her daughter, Emily, who called every Sunday to share stories of college life. Clara hadn't told her about the layoffs or the complaints. She didn't want Emily to worry, to feel like her dreams were a burden. But how would she pay for those tuition bills now? How would she keep the lights on? The bell jingled again, and a group of teenagers shuffled in, laughing loudly. Clara straightened up, forcing her smile back into place. "Evening, folks," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "What can I get started for you?" One of the boys smirked. "You still work here, Grandma?" he said, nudging his friend. The others laughed, and Clara's smile faltered. She'd heard comments like that before, little jabs about her age, her slower steps. But tonight, they cut deeper. "Just coffee and fries," the boy said, not looking at her. Clara nodded and turned away, her throat tight. She wanted to say something, to tell them she'd given her heart to this place, that she wasn't just some grandma they could mock. But she didn't. She never did. She just kept moving, kept serving, kept swallowing the hurt. As she poured their coffee, she caught her reflection in the glass door. Her gray hair was pulled into a neat bun, her face lined with years of hard work and quiet strength. She didn't look like someone who deserved this, but who was she to argue? The world didn't care about fairness, not for a woman like her. The old man in the flannel shirt was still there, sipping his coffee slowly, his slice of apple pie untouched. Clara glanced at him as she carried the teenagers' fries to their table. His eyes followed her, not in a nosy way, but with a quiet attention that made her feel seen. It was strange, almost unsettling. Most customers didn't notice her beyond their orders. When she passed his booth again, he raised a hand. "Miss Clara," he said, reading her name tag. "This coffee's just right, thank you." It was a small thing, those words, but they landed like a warm blanket on a cold night. Clara paused, her lips parting in surprise. "You're welcome," she said softly. "Glad you're enjoying it." He tilted his head, his gray eyes steady. "You look like you've had a long day," he said, not prying, just stating it like a fact. Clara hesitated. She wasn't supposed to talk about herself. Hargrove had made that clear. "Keep it professional," he'd snapped once. But something about this man's voice, gentle and unhurried, made her want to answer. "It's been a day," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, like he understood more than she'd said. "I've had days like that," he said. "Sometimes it feels like the world's stacked against you, but you know what? A little kindness can turn it all around." Clara didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to customers talking like this, like they cared about her beyond their meal. She gave a small smile and started to walk away, but he spoke again. "You're good at what you do, Clara. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her breath caught. How did he know? How could he see the weight she was carrying? She nodded, her eyes stinging, and hurried back to the counter before the tears could spill. She didn't know his name. Didn't know why he'd said those words, but they stayed with her, glowing like a small ember in the dark. As she cleaned the coffee machine, she stole another glance at him. He was writing something on a napkin, his movements slow and deliberate. When he finished, he folded it neatly and tucked it under his plate. Clara's heart skipped. Was it a note? A tip? She didn't dare hope for much. Most customers left $1 or $2, if anything, but something about that napkin felt different. The teenagers left, their laughter echoing as the door swung shut. Clara cleared their table, her hands moving on autopilot. She was tired, so tired, but that man's words kept replaying in her mind. "You're good at what you do." She hadn't heard anything like that in months, maybe years. It was a small act of kindness, but it felt like a lifeline. When the clock hit 9:00 p.m., Clara locked the front door and flipped the closed sign. The diner was empty now, except for the man in the flannel shirt. He stood, pulling on his jacket, and walked to the counter. Clara braced herself, expecting him to leave without another word. Instead, he slid the napkin across the counter. "This is for you," he said, his voice low but warm. "Read it when you're ready." Clara stared at the napkin, her fingers hovering over it. "Thank you," she said, her voice unsteady. She didn't know why her heart was racing, why this small gesture felt so big. He tipped his head, almost like a bow, and walked out into the night. Clara stood frozen, the napkin in her hand. She unfolded it slowly, her breath shallow. In neat, careful handwriting, it read, "Clara, you have a gift for making people feel at home. Don't let this place take that from you. You're worth more than they know. Henry." She read it again, then a third time, her vision blurring. Henry. His name was Henry. She didn't know him, had never seen him before tonight, but his words cut through the fog of her pain. They were simple, but they carried a weight she couldn't explain. For the first time all day, she felt like she wasn't invisible. She sank onto a stool, clutching the napkin. Memories flooded back, years of small moments at Rosie's, customers who'd smiled because of her, regulars who'd brought her Christmas cards or told her about their lives. She'd always brushed it off, told herself it was just part of the job. But Henry's note made her see it differently. Maybe she did matter. Maybe her work, her kindness, had left a mark. She thought of her daughter, Emily, and the way she'd always said, "Mom, you make everyone feel special." Clara had laughed it off, but now she wondered, had she been so busy surviving that she'd forgotten her own worth? A question lingered in her mind, one she wished she could ask the audience listening to her story. Have you ever felt seen by a complete stranger when no one else cared? It was a question that felt universal, a quiet plea for connection. Clara didn't know the answer, but Henry's note made her believe it was possible. She tucked the napkin into her pocket, her fingers brushing against it like a talisman. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. The next morning, Clara woke with a heaviness in her chest. She'd barely slept, the napkin still folded on her nightstand. She read it again before leaving for the dinner, not to work, but to collect her final paycheck. Hargrove had told her to come by at 10 a.m., and she dreaded facing him, but she needed that check. She needed to keep going for Emily, for herself. When she arrived, the diner was buzzing with the breakfast rush. Hargrove was behind the counter, barking orders at a new waitress who looked overwhelmed. Clara's heart twisted. She knew that feeling too well. She approached Hargrove, her head high despite the knot in her stomach. "I'm here for my paycheck," she said, her voice steady. Hargrove barely glanced at her. "In the office," he muttered, waving her off. As Clara turned to go, a familiar voice stopped her. "Clara?" It was Henry, sitting in the same booth as last night. He was with another man, younger, in a suit. They both stood, and Henry's face broke into a warm smile. "I was hoping you'd be here." Clara blinked, confused. "Henry? I'm not working today. I was let go." Henry's smile faded, replaced by a look of quiet determination. "I heard," he said, "and I think that's a mistake." He gestured to the man beside him. "This is my son, Tom. He owns a cafe downtown. I told him about you last night, about how you make this place feel like home." Tom stepped forward, extending a hand. "Dad's been raving about you, Clara. Said you're the kind of person who makes customers come back. I could use someone like that at my place. It's smaller than Rosie's, but we're growing. Interested?" Clara's breath caught. "A job offer? Just like that?" She glanced at Henry, who gave her a small nod, his eyes twinkling. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "I'd love to talk about it." Tom smiled. "Great. Come by tomorrow morning. We'll figure out the details." Before Clara could respond, another voice cut through the noise. "Clara!" It was Mrs. Carter, one of her regulars, standing by the counter with a group of customers. "We heard what happened. It's not right. You're the heart of this place." Clara's cheeks flushed as more voices chimed in. Mr. Jenkins, the couple from Table 5, even the new waitress. They were speaking up for her, their words a chorus of support. Hargrove froze, his clipboard dangling in his hand. For the first time, he looked unsure. Henry leaned closer to Clara, his voice low. "You've got more people in your corner than you think," he said. "Don't forget that." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from gratitude, from the realization that she wasn't invisible. She mattered, Henry, to Tom, to the customers who'd known her for years. She mattered. As she left the diner, her paycheck in hand and Tom's business card in her pocket, Clara felt lighter than she had in months. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew she'd find a way forward. She always had. And to you, watching this story unfold, we hope it's reminded you of the power of kindness, the way a single moment can change a life. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to the Kind Story where kindness always finds a way. Clara walked into the morning sun, Henry's napkin still in her pocket. She didn't need to read it again to know what it said. Its words were written on her heart now, a reminder that even on the darkest days, kindness could light the way. Disclaimer: this story was originally created for the Kind Story YouTube channel. It is a unique and original work not copied from any source. While AI tools may assist in formatting or narration, all stories are written by human creatives to reflect true emotions, values, and life situations.